So we're going to start with our opening video. So here we go. Welcome, and we have a really diverse group today. We have people from the United States, from Canada, Mexico, Brazil, South Africa, Croatia, United Kingdom, Peru, and the Netherlands. And we have a group of retailers, architects, shopping center owners, luxury brands, artists, sports brands, investment banks, trade associations, and much more. We also have, when we think of the coronavirus, COVID-19, we think of our own country, but there's actually a lot going on in South Africa, and Brazil is getting really hit hard. We were on the phone with Brazil late last week, and it's ripping through the country, and it's not good. I wanted to share some information with you, and this is latest information from Pew Research, just came out the other day, and so the question is, how are people adjusting to this new normal? Well, 32% of Americans have had a virtual party in the last few weeks. 20% have watched a live event concert. 18% of America are taking live stream fitness classes every day, so we're staying lean and mean. 32% are ordering from local restaurants, which is terrific. My wife has a restaurant, and her takeout's booming. And then 21% are ordering from the grocery. So those are really good stats. When we get into the presentation, I'm going to be making comparisons to China because we have a very big event going on in Shanghai today. But the comparisons to China must be modulated because we have been in lockdown for 7 weeks. China's been in lockdown for 20. And the markets are similar but dissimilar in that the U.S. is 76% broadband penetrated, and China's about 50. So I've been also looking at consumer sentiment data, and as we look at consumer sentiment, and we'll look at this for China as well. Basically, we're about 101 in February consumer confidence. We were about 89 in March, and we're about 71. So obviously it's gone down. However, when I look at 9/11, which some of you will say it's not valid, but it's the only data set we have, it really was a tremendous V-shaped recovery. September confidence really went down. And then it actually plateaued and then went exceeding in December. So anyway, and then so the key really is restoring consumer confidence. And we've got a great group of experts here that are just sort of what the doctor ordered, all puns intended. And we're going to start out with a video from Riyadh from South Africa, and who will talk about some of the challenges they're facing in that market, which are actually very unique.
Hi, my name is Riyadh, a retailer from South Africa. We are an emerging country with a high HIV burden rate, which has resulted in one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. From March 27, the whole retail sector of South Africa has been shut down, with only essential services, retailers such as grocers and medical supplies allowing to operate. These retailers who sell essential services have seen a massive spike in sales as consumers sought to stock up on these items. Their online platforms have also exploded. South Africa has had a slow adoption for grocery store online retail, but since the COVID epidemic, this has now exploded. The rest of retail is taking a massive hit in South Africa, none more so than the informal retail sector in South Africa, which consists of subsistence type of street vendors who rely on this type of living. The government has sought to mitigate some of this by increasing social grants and by also easing the lockdown from the 1st of May. This is because we've also managed to flatten the curve and with only 4,500 infections and 90 deaths. In order to keep the momentum going, the government has looked at opening a phased approach, and thus only certain retail sectors will be open from the 1st of May that sell clothing. The big question remains, what will happen to South African retail post-COVID-19, considering that it was already under severe pressure prior to COVID-19?
So it's an interesting report from South Africa. The COVID-19 and the AIDS situation really is something that is of concern. Brazil, as you've been reading, is getting hit really, really hard, and there is a lot of unrest in Brazil at the moment. So today, this is the sun rising over New Jersey, as it does every day, and we are on the front line, and we're going to talk about the rise of retail, because retail is getting ready to rise. This is a view from New York City, the famous Macy's store. Obviously, it's a little bit quiet in New York right now. I want to talk about the 7 weeks and the 20 weeks, because China's been in a lockdown more or less for about 20 weeks. In speaking with the Shanghai Business Improvement District, they basically were, the streets of Shanghai were empty as this hit. And talk about the 7 weeks. We're entering our 7th week right now, and as you can see, things are starting to open. We have probably 2 of the most appropriate people on earth for this discussion. Bob Phibbs, who is a retail doctor, and we certainly do need a doctor. And I also call her Dr. Shelley Cohen, who is a retail pundit, who is a retail executive, FIT professor, a journalist, and an extraordinary thinker that you would like at a time like this when we need to think new thoughts. So On the Frontline basically was created by retailers for retailers, and our objective, our metric is that when we don't do this anymore, then we will consider this a success. However, in the meantime, one of the big issues we're going to be talking about next week is the psychology and the impact and what retailers can take. This is an expert. Bob is really the expert on this. We are expecting a domestic travel surge, and so how does that impact the retail industry? And then, we think that the focus is really on safety first, and then, customer care. Those are the key openers for the market, and we'll see some of that coming up. We're also going to be hosting a World COVID-19 Retail Summit virtually. We're going to have maybe people you haven't heard of, but people that are in charge of supply chains and operations, and the people who are really actually making things work. And so we're planning in the early planning stages for that too. It will be 6 hours. And then this past weekend, a very beloved figure in the United States in the fashion, the financial industry, is Warren Buffett. And this past weekend at his annual event, which was virtual, he said, "We face tougher problems, and the American miracle, American magic, has always prevailed." And that's Warren Buffett. For those of you history fans, if this was December 8th, 1941, we might be a little bit on the sad side because of what happened to Pearl Harbor. However, if we look 4 years from that date, the United States was producing 8 aircraft carriers a month and had produced 42 billion rounds of ammunition. And it was really the beginning of the atomic energy industry and also venture capital. So as we are at this dark moment, as we were on September 11th, we most certainly will get past this. I want to talk to you about something that we came up with at Consumers in Motion, and we call it the light switch inflection point. And so typically inflection points, be it the printing press, be it TV, radio, internet, and so forth, happen over 20 years, 10 years, 500 years. This has happened. And so my recommendation is to absorb this and accept it, because business has changed, period. The question we are asking during this week and for the next year is, how should I adapt? Let's talk about the 20 weeks. This is Shanghai in January this year, 2002. Again, pretty much represents the conversations I've had with my colleagues in China. So again, we think of China in two ways. We think of China before March 15th and after March 15th. We've reviewed some of this in past webinars, so we're going to rock it through this. So in February of this year, consumer confidence in China, according to McKinsey, was around 43%. And there was all sorts of people walking on eggshells, taking temperatures, wearing masks. I mean, we're honestly just trying to work through this and try to figure out, what's the way out. So anyway, so that's February. As we move forward, and we're past the March 15th period, so you see people in Shanghai, again, we're still in Shanghai, they're out walking around, they've got the mask on, it's a little bit different from that desolate picture 2 slides ago. Consumer confidence had inched up to 48%, again, according to McKinsey, and things are becoming a little bit more, I guess, relaxed, or people just getting out there. I think this is about where we are right now. And then as we look this is Starbucks. So as we're going to Starbucks, we've got the gloves on, we have the lines. And again, this is pretty much America, or at least the New York area where I'm from right now. And we're at about 52% consumer confidence. I want to stop for a second because those of you who might be thinking, boy, this guy is too optimistic. Let me just tell you that everyone in our family has been affected by COVID-19. We've lost neighbors and we've lost friends in just the past couple of days. So the information that I'm giving you is really, it's information. These are facts, and then we'll decide what the facts are. But believe me, I am not Pollyannish about the impact of this, because we have suffered as a family and as a community. As we look at the market, and these are from Kevin Peng. Kevin was on on 2 or 3 episodes ago. He is the Secretary General of the China, the CCFA, which is the China, it's the National Retail Federation and the National Restaurant Association and the National Association of Convenience Stores. So it's one size fits all, basically. Kevin reported, and we're going to be talking to Kevin in the coming weeks for updates, but about 95% of the supermarkets in China are open. About 85% of the department stores are open, but they're seeing around 30 to 40% of sales. And so, brick and mortar needs to sort of, gain its traction. Again, as Kevin said, those that were basically digital brands did very well. So I want to talk to you today. It's very appropriate that we would actually have this particular event going on today. This is the 55 Shopping Festival. And again, I was on the phone with the Shanghai Business Improvement District earlier today. And I asked them for their guidelines as to the social distancing and for other types of information we can get. And Chinese have been very, very sharing of all this information and so forth. So it's 2 months long. So, I mean, China, Shanghai, if those of you haven't been to Shanghai, it's sort of like New York. And basically they're packing in some really big festivals like May Day, which is a huge shopping festival, Children's Day. There's a big push towards children at shopping centers in China, and the Dragon Boat Festival. And they basically they're offering, I think it's 10 billion vouchers. They've freed up 40,000 parking spaces in downtown Shanghai. They've got 40 companies, 60 brands. You can read this yourself. But I mean, they're going all in and big. And so we're going to be talking with the Shanghai folks every couple of weeks and just get updates, because maybe this is a model. or maybe we can learn what worked or what didn't work. But you know, I view Shanghai as really the commercial capital of China, and this will be really interesting. We've been to China, we spent time there, and we have a high degree of confidence in these people. So this is Philadelphia. This is a supermarket late last week, and we are moving forward as we always do, and as the world will. And in fact, we've moved so forward that we have 29 states open or opening soon. Now, I was just on the phone with our folks in Austin, Texas this morning, and what they were saying is that they're seeing more of the convenience stores and gas stations and supermarkets and other kind of smaller stores opening. So it could be that that the stores are opening in sort of a measured way. Restaurants are opening, and we're going to, as this is just breaking, we're going to be highlighting a little bit more on the U.S. in subsequent broadcasts. So one of the questions we got from about 120 Mexican retailers last week and about 20 from Brazil is, what are the best practices? So we at Retail Store Tours will start up when New York starts, and we're offering N95 masks and gloves. But this is what Carrefour and others, Aldi, are offering in Europe. So it's sort of nothing new. Maybe it's new for the US. We're pre-screening stores for the Retail Store Tour program. We're offering virtual tours, so you can watch a tour on your laptop, or if you want to look at thousands of stores around the world, we have a database. So we're offering the product virtually and also physically. The CDC is constantly updating their guidelines. So rather than us come up with something, I would say follow that. The NRF, through their Operation Open Doors, has really done a tremendous job. The leadership from Matt Shea and the NRF has been just spectacular, and they continue to do that. Rodney, who is the CEO of Kroger's, introduced, and Shelley highlighted this in her article, the Kroger Blueprint for Business. Phenomenal. I mean, it's just everything you'd want to know, from employee training to distancing to sanitization. And so as we get good sources, we'll up. And then I've asked for the Chinese business district guidelines, which we're in the process of getting. The challenge with that is that it's in Chinese, so we have to do some translating. So anyway, these were sort of, I put this here because this came up on the call with Mexico and Brazil last week, and part of the this program literally is created by feedback. So at the end, we'll have a poll for you to answer some questions, but just email me, because we're going to try to get through this together, and I think together we will get through this. So part of getting together is really the front line. And we did a study earlier this year. It was called the 7 Factors of Success, and number 1 is really the human touch. And what I want to do is ask Bob Phibbs, who's built a 26-year career on this particular one of many of his questions, and if he could lay out some guidelines for us over the next few minutes as to what is the frontline training and how will that help with the COVID-19 shoppers. And Bob, I'll leave it to you to take it from here.
Right. Well, it's not letting me start my video, so you'll have to open that up for me.
All right.
But as you do that, I will start that.
Okay. We'll see if we can get Chelsea to work on that.
Yeah, good. What I am telling clients is we are much more like 9/11 than some people want to say, which is there's going to be early we have to remember that, we had to get the planes back from the wrong airports, had to get to the right airports, they had to build a schedule that made sense. Then after that, they had to go through and they had to come up with a schedule with limited ability. And then they had those early adopters that came out, and they had to make them feel like flying is safe. And that's what I am telling everybody, that we do not have much leeway here, that people who walk in, a messy store is going to be considered unclean. And so we have to really focus on the early adopters. And that's why I'm telling everybody you've got to have a staff meeting. Yes, socially distanced, I get all that stuff. But if you're just opening or you've reopened, you're going to have to actually unpack what they've been through, show some empathy, be able to talk about where you've been, and understand that we're in a different place now, that we're trying to go through and make sure that our training is up to speed. And let's face it, starting with number one, you're going to have to do mask training. You're going to have to embrace the awkward. They're going to have to be more personal. You know, if you cover up half of your face, it's hard to see that you're smiling. And that goes with not letting your employees go through and, you know, have a death mask or something terrible that people want to say, yeah, that's creepy. You don't want that. So having that conversation is really, really important. I think also you've got to train them on how do I pivot a conversation. You know, people coming in are going to want to talk about COVID-19. We've all been through it, but you don't want that conversation on your sales floor. Yeah, my sister got sick, was in the hospital and died, and, you know, all of these horror stories. We don't need to hear that. So you're going to have to train them how to do that. And then remember that retail has always been a game of being brilliant on the basics. So you're going to have to go through and model those awkward conversations. What happens if somebody starts coughing in your store? What happens if you say, you know, we're going to have masks and then someone doesn't? And I say that make sure that whatever you're doing, you have signage at the front. I think Verizon has done a really good job of this, of saying, here's how we're doing it. But I think what we end up doing is letting people wing it because there's no federal program, which is why. And if you read that NRF page, it's really long and detailed and hard to do. So make sure that you're role playing the uncomfortable conversations you're going to have, because realistically, you're going to have to sell your way out of this. And one thing that I'm seeing from vendors and from brands is they are saying they're having a spike in entry-level products. And while that's great, that's not great, because it probably means people are either selling from their own wallet or they're coming into the store with something they researched and no one is being able to help them find or discover something new. And that really kills the whole idea of why we go into a brick and mortar store to begin with. We go in because we want to go through and feel that we matter. And ultimately, that's what has to happen. And so I do say you have to go through and make sure that your crew understands that the waiting on customer is gone, that you have to care for customers, and it's going to show with the level of detail you put into planning and doing your diligence first to come up with, well, how are we going to operate in this new way? Then making sure that you're going to have that plan enunciate to your employees, but more importantly, you're going to show it to your customers. And the final thing that I would add, Dan, is make sure you limit your news. No one is writing stories about how brands are achieving and trying and doing and trying all sorts of different things. What we're running into is here's another way that people are failing, here's another horrible story, and et cetera, and expect that they're going to have another story about the second and third and fourth wave, and no one has merchandise, and when they open, they're going to have someone's sob story, and then it's going to be, my God, retailers are worried about how they can achieve, and they're worried that they're not going to have a good holiday, and I mean, it's not going to end. So know that, and then say, I'm turning off notifications. I'm not sleeping with my phone by my head. It's not going to say $1 million is coming into you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting, Bob, because it's almost like a post-traumatic syndrome training for both the sales associates and the customers. Was that be accurate, or? Yep.
I apologize, Dan. I think we lost Bob. I'll try and get him back in real quick.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that was the main point, and so thanks, Bob. And again, internet being what it is. And then Shelley, if you're here, I wanted you to talk about the strategy to drive shoppers back to stores. And I thought the approach that the people have at in Shanghai is really good, because you know, they're going big. They've got 2 months. They've got 3 big festivals. And any thoughts on that would be appreciated. Great. Well, one of the charms of doing these types of events is that from time to time we lose people. Oh, there you are. There you go. I am well, thanks, Shelley. So we're looking at a slide of a young lady coming out of a shopping center. She's got her both hands filled with the bag, and she's got the rubber gloves on and the mask. So the question is, earlier we talked about the situation in Shanghai where they have the Shanghai 55 festival, and basically they've got, I believe it's 55 days of just bang up promotions and issuing 10 billion vouchers and freeing up 40,000 parking spaces in Shanghai. So as we look to get back on, what would be the strategy to drive shoppers to the stores? Any suggestions or thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So, you know, a lot of when we talk about marketing in the light of the opening up of America, so one of the key points is what you said earlier about customer sentiment and really understanding that the consumers want to see that retailers are being sensitive to the new normal shopping environment. So any type of marketing that's void of messaging around, you know, the safe shopping environment really could alienate shoppers. So being super careful about demonstrating, and I'll give some examples to both employees and to shoppers that the retailer cares about, you know, the environment and what's happening and the new normal. Also, just keeping in mind, there's been an obvious shift in what consumers are buying. Understanding these shifts and creating relevant marketing messages, demonstrating that the retailer understands the mind of the consumer is critically important. And I would say that there's a lot of great examples in the industry. I'm so happy you use the Kroger Blueprint for Success opening. They've done a phenomenal job. I think that what a lot of retailers can do as we begin to open up is to look at successes in the past of those retailers, one, that have been open, you know, since the pandemic has hit the US. I think understanding what government policies and procedures are and incorporating those, and most importantly is working in a very collaborative effort to, you know, open up these safe shopping environments. So the Retail Industry Leaders Association, in collaboration with the National Retail Federation, put together an excellent guide called Open for Business, which is a blueprint for shopping safe. So being able to learn from what others have done, being able to incorporate government regulations and also protocols from the CDC will help retailers really put together a plan and a strategy that is going to help. I think if I had to say what are the 5 key points in opening up America and really reaching those consumers as they begin to start shopping is really demonstrate a safe shopping and working environment. Take care of shoppers and employees through communication, either messaging, signing, audio messages, visual signs in the store, even tangible changes like sneeze guards. Those are all demonstrations that the retailer is taking proactive steps to create a safe shopping environment. Educating both employees but also consumers is excellent. So any type of education messaging within the store that helps shoppers be better safe shoppers and employees at the same time. Providing online pickup, curbside, and ship it options are all going to be critical, making sure the consumer knows they have many different choices to secure goods and products. Very important. I know that's easier said than done. If you don't have the infrastructure to support those initiatives, it can be a bit more of a challenge, but certainly if you do have those initiatives, making sure that consumers are very aware of how all those programs work and make it logistically easy for consumers to participate in those different commerce options. Adjusting the hours, obviously, but the basic minimum expectation that customers coming into the store, consumers and shoppers coming into these environments, the basic minimum expectation is that retailers are following the government-driven procedures and requirements. So the social distancing protocols, the reduced occupancy. So demonstrating that the retailer is doing this, again, either with updated website information or in-store signage. But I think it's important not just to state the new process or procedures, but also explain a little bit the why behind it. And I think the last piece that I'll just throw out there, I know we're ending our time shortly, but any area that you have the ability as a retailer to have processes like contactless commerce. So for example, payments, for example, if you can move that transaction of the customer having to go through the transaction at the end of a shopping experience, even if you have to get a third party to help with that, that speaks volumes, you know. So this, you know, being able to use mobile payment or using your phone to pay for things, or, you know, being able to scan through, I think is really helpful for, especially to relieve some of the stress that the shoppers might be feeling in these new shopping environments.
I think those are all valid points, and we have some of those links in the presentation here. So thanks, Shelley. I appreciate that. And this will be an ongoing process. So continuing, thank you. So we are also creating programs, as Shelley discussed, on safer shopping demand. Some corporate programs we've gotten requests from in Mexico. We've also found it very good to have grocery folks just meet and discuss this, and also deep dives into supply chain. So these are some of the programs that we've got coming and done publicly and privately. And then next week, we are talking about the impact on psychology, as Shelley and Bob spoke about, preparing for a potential domestic boom. And then, as Shelley outlined before, what are the safe practices before focusing on the bottom line? We're also planning for the World Retail Summit. And our goal basically is for everybody on this call to be able to go to Shanghai Disneyland or Disneyland at the end of this, so we can all celebrate all the hard work we've done. We've just launched a poll, so if you could potentially answer the questions, that would be helpful. We're trying to, we're creating this based on feedback. So literally, the feedback we're getting is we're changing this program right up to the point where we're giving it. We thank you very much for the opportunity to visit with us today. And since we are out of time, we're happy to answer any questions that you've got offline or through dan@retailstoretours.com or through any other method. So thank you very much for coming. We're going to leave the poll open for a bit. And anyway, so thank you, and please keep your comments coming in, and we appreciate them. If you do have a moment to answer the poll, we greatly appreciate it. The question was, Amy is asking, how can I access earlier webinars? And thank you so much, Amy, you're very sweet. We're putting them, Chelsea can get them to you, but we're actually relaunching the website to be more of a COVID-19 resource center. And so we're going to be having the different videos, the China video, the top 10 trends. They're all going to be on the website, Amy. And yeah, so check it, and then I'll ask, if we have your email, Amy, I'll ask Chelsea to send you the last webinars and also the presentations.
I'd be happy to do that, Amy, for you. I can get those to you today.
Okay, thank you very much for those. Oh, there's another question coming in. Oh, okay, so basically the question was, I was not able to check off all the items that interest me for future webinars. You know what, just if you could type us, what areas are of interest, because what we found was, like, for example, if you're in the grocery industry, we have a phenomenal connection for you at the T11 market, and we spoke to Catherine last week about that. T11 is probably the most advanced supermarket I've seen. And the interesting thing about T11 was it was designed by software engineers. So, anyway, so supply chain was an issue in China, even though they have, warehouses. So we're happy to get together, put together with grocers or supply chain also is a big topic. And there's a lot of revolution in that area. Also, Coca-Cola has mentioned that they're using AI to do preemptive type supply chain management as well. So there's a lot, there's a lot going on. So just literally, just let us know what you want to talk about, and we'll be sure to incorporate that into the future events we've got coming. Great. It looks like, oh, there's one more coming in. Oh. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is an iterative process, and so we appreciate your feedback, and we're going to shut the poll down in just a couple of minutes. So yeah, if you're available, please answer the questions. And we've got 19 participants here. So
we have one more question from Juliana in there.
Oh, hi, Juliana. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to get to that question right now. Oh, here we go. So how should retail designers adapt to the new normal? You know what? Super interesting, Juliana. Great, love that question. There are basically, and I'll send you the information. Can't pull it up at this second, but Gensler, which is probably the world's largest architecture firm, Juliana, have 10 basic guidelines for designing the workplace, but the same guidelines apply to retail space. So it's distancing, it's safety, it's dining, it's everything you'd imagine. It's beautifully done. There's a lot of depth behind that, Juliana, and I have your email, so I'll send it to you. But that is what we covered during the last webinar, which was the top, some of the top trends that we're seeing in the marketplace. And so, space management is really, really critical. Yeah, any guidance from around the financial institutions opening, banks and so forth? Basically, and we're dealing with our local banks here. If you go to the, it's towards the end of this, and then the guidelines that basically Kroger has put out would be, even though Kroger is a supermarket, it's basically the same elements in terms of the physicality of it. So I would look, even though it's a financial institution, I would look to the Kroger for the physical spacing of it. There's also cleaning protocols and so forth. And then, as Bob said, people have been, all of us have been impacted. I mentioned our situation in New Jersey with losing our families completely affected, and we've lost neighbors and friends and things like that. So there's a psychological part of it too. So it's really, if there's one piece of advice I can give everyone that's remaining on the call, it's basically simple advice from Dale Carnegie. He wrote a book. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the main point of that book is, if you want people to be interested in you, be interested in them. And so it's not about the bank. It's not about the store. It's about the people, how they're feeling and how you can help them. So, so Paul, that would be there's a psychological training guidelines that Bob will be providing us a video. And there's also the physical parts of it as well. From a financial point of view, if you're looking to analyze companies in terms of, ones that are, will be very successful, we recommend that we've done something which is called the Consumer Engagement Index. And the Consumer Engagement Index looks at the 7 factors that drive success in retail. And Shelley and I, who was on earlier, we've modeled that to financial performance. So if on a soft basis, you're looking to get that information, Paul, those are the guidelines. On a harder basis, if you're looking to determine who would be more successful or who would have a better chance of success, then I would look at the Consumer Engagement Index, which we've published on our website and be happy to talk about offline, but those are the key factors. The issue with the market is not supply chain, it's human software management. And if all of us who were in the New York area, we can remember, getting on that first airplane after 9/11 and, thinking that this was the last, our last flight we're going to take. So, there's a fear factor. Once we get over the fear factor, once we see that Paul and Abby are shopping at Hermes, we'll start relaxing ourselves. So it's I think as Shelley and Bob said, you got to jump in the pool, and after you jump in the pool, you'll be better positioned. Anyway, we thank you so much for your time, and again, tell us what you'd like to focus on in the weeks ahead. We're happy to accommodate. I think all of us will get through this together. Thank you so much. And we hope that you have a really productive day. And if something comes up in the meantime, just reach out to us. We're always available. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.